Okay, it's 4 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm not going to say, well, there's some ladies here, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming up to Committee of the Whole. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, March the 9th to order. Before start, I just respectfully acknowledge that we're meeting here on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people represented by the Kisepson and Songhees nations, whose stewardship of these lands continues to this date. Moving on to item 2 is the approval of the agenda. May I have a mover and seconder to adopt today's agenda? Thank you very much, Councillor Olson and Councillor Grove. Any call the question, discussion? No. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. May I have a mover and seconder to adopt the minutes of the February 9th Committee of the Whole meeting minutes? Okay, thank you, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Ward. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. I'll get on with public participation. There were 2 written submissions received prior to today's agenda publication, and 5 written submissions were received after agenda publication, and they will be appended to the agenda following the meeting. All written submissions will be added to the city meetings website following the meeting. No members of the public have registered to speak virtually, so I will invite members of the public to come on up and to speak for 2 minutes.
On.
Good, got it.
Thank you, Mayor Kobayashi and Council. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Royal Bay Homeowners Association. My name is John English. What city staff have presented today is a draft update to the city's transportation plan is not data-driven, it's not realistic, and it does not address the concerns, needs, and priorities of the majority of Colwood citizens. It's not even a plan. For the last 6 years, our association has been asking the city to prepare an updated transportation master plan to support the scale and pace of development that is occurring in our city. In 2022, Colwood citizens voted for significant change on city council because of the lack of progress on this very important issue and other important issues. 2 years later, nothing has been done, and our community association felt that the situation had become urgent. So we then, in 2024, advised City Council that if the city staff were unwilling or unable to produce a draft updated master transportation plan within 3 months, the city needed to get other people who were both willing and capable to do so. At that time, Mayor Kobayashi and the City Council disagreed with what we had to say on that particular comment. I believe that Mayor Kobayashi and the city staff, or pardon me, and the other members of council were wanting to be supportive of city staff at that time. The head of engineering was then asked when they might be able to provide a draft update to the master transportation plan. The head of engineering advised that the draft could be prepared by October of 2024. It's now March of 2026. It would appear that our mayor and council support for city staff to.
That's your 2-minute time frame, Mr. English.
That's it?
Yes, sir. Next, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Reviewing the extensive documentation on this issue, I don't see any action taken on phase 2 activities cited in the draft TMP, namely community survey number 2, February 26, feedback from draft TMP, February 26, public open house, February, again, 26 interested party meetings. And March 26, what we have learned, engagement summary. Is the plan to keep using the same week input to get their own way while ignoring resident concerns? In addition to this, didn't the council direct staff to conduct a meaningful survey after receiving the first iteration of the TMP? So that's it.
Thanks very much. Next, please.
Mayor, council, staff, Roger Conrad Colwood. When I first read the plan, I have to admit, I was at about page 38 and my blood pressure was going through the roof. And I actually had to go outside for a walk. My partner said, "What's wrong with you? Your face is so red." But as I got through it, when I hit page 63, what I think we got into the meat and potatoes of the actual transportation master plan. The first section really was just a regurgitation of the active transportation network plan. So to the staff who worked on the last half of the report, I think it was fairly reasonable. Just a couple of things there was lots, but just to point out a couple of things. The network improvements have been identified based on detailed traffic modeling that accounts for traffic conditions and anticipated growth, as well as considering road safety and active transportation objectives. Well, where is there anywhere in there that they're saying maintaining traffic flow? To improve or maintain traffic flow and to maximize our corridors. So if our thrust is for road safety and active transportation, we're missing the objective of this. It really is to maximize and improve traffic flow on our corridors. Another section I just cut out just for a tidbit, the city intends to enable efficient delivery of goods. And then they go on to say, regional good movements, identified corridors in Colwood, Island Highway, Soup Road, Veterans Memorial. Well, how are the delivery trucks going to get into Royal Bay if they don't include Latoria? Kind of foolish to have trucks going all the way around and can't get down there because it isn't identified as a truck corridor. And why isn't Machosen Road considered as well? Thank you. One other thing, the acronyms put on the last page were excellent. Whoever decided to do that did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please. I will, because we do have the time. Mr. English, if you want to finish off what you were going to say there, you can come up a second.
Thank you, Mayor Kobayashi. That was background that I had given before, so I appreciate the opportunity to get to the main point. It would appear that our mayor and council's past support for city staff 2 years ago has actually been inappropriately used. We are now well into the last year of our current council's term, and still nothing new has been produced. What city staff have produced or presented today are the same minority-driven ideas that they worked on under the previous unpopular mayor and council. City staff appear to have successfully avoided having to produce a data-driven, realistic, updated transportation master plan that will effectively address the concerns, needs, and priorities of the majority of Colwood citizens. Our mayor and council and the citizens of Colwood all deserve better. Royal Bay Homeowners Association urges City Council to immediately direct our new CAO to engage the services of a qualified public survey company to report directly to him to obtain a true picture of the real transportation needs and priorities of the majority of Colwood citizens. Once genuine transportation needs and priorities of the majority of Colwood citizens have been determined, the city will then finally be in a position to develop a realistic, updated transportation master plan that will help maintain the quality of life for existing Colwood residents, as well as support the scale and development and pace of development that is occurring. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. English. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, councillors, and everyone in the room, good afternoon. I'm Parasmati Vandari. I'm international student from Nepal. I'm at Rosenberg University, and I'm currently studying Masters in Communication here. And I used to work as environmental impact analyst at Nepal. And going through your agenda today, I saw that you are working on solid waste management. And at university, I'm writing a proposal on hazardous solid waste management, like how the regional district and the municipalities in the island are working on hazardous waste. So I just came how you're working on it and just to say hi to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Thank you. And final call. Anyone else would like to speak? I'd like to speak later, Mr. Mayor. Okay, on item 5, item 5 or item 5.2, 5.1 or 5.2? Solid waste? Yeah. Okay, I will have someone kick me and remind me that you need to talk. Okay, thanks.
Do that for you.
Okay. We'll move on to item 5, which is new business, transportation master plan update, draft TMP for council review and phase 2 engagement. Mr. Johnson, could you introduce the speaker, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the Transportation Master Plan Update. This is the draft TMP for council review and phase 2 engagement. Josh Andrews, our head engineer, is here to present the recommendation that Council Committee of the Whole consider recommending to council that the council receive the draft Transportation Master Plan for review, and that council accept the draft TMP for the purpose of community engagement and authorize staff to proceed with phase 2 of the engagement process to gather community feedback on the draft plan. Mr. Andrews does have a presentation for you.
Mr. Andrews, please. Great.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, committee members. Today, we're presenting the Transportation Master Plan for your review. This is the culmination of technical analysis and policy alignment and phase 1 of the community engagement. So we're seeking committee's endorsement to proceed to phase 2 of the public engagement before finalizing the plan. So the purpose tonight is threefold: is to present the draft TMP at a high level, highlight some of the major policy directions and network maps, and then seek authorization to proceed with phase 2 engagement. The full draft is appended to the report, which I'm sure you've all reviewed, and tonight's presentation will focus on a few of the key strategic elements.
Yeah. Josh, do you want us to ask questions as you go along on the slides, or would you?
It's not a long presentation. So if I can, and there's a few maps in here as well. I can get through the presentation. If I need to go back to any of the maps, I'd be very happy to.
Okay, so that's great. Thanks very much, Josh.
Great. So so this. So since 2015 TMP, Colwood has experienced a bunch of change, and we've seen rapid growth in Royal Bay, the Colwood Corners area, and other developments. And of course, the adoption of the 2018 official community plan. We have updated our climate commitments and have evolved in our travel behavior, especially post-COVID. So we've also been given the direction to incorporate the draft active transportation network plan into the TMP. So the previous TMP no longer reflected the growth patterns of the community, the policy framework, and or the infrastructure priorities. So this update aligns the transportation network planning with today's Colwood and where we're going over the next 25 years. So the update followed a 4-phase process. The first was background research and technical analysis, which included a new traffic model, a collection of collision data, and travel survey data. The second phase was phase 1 engagement in summer 2025. The third was the preparation of the draft TMP, and tonight represents the transition to phase 2 engagement. sharing the draft plan, and seeking community validation before final adoption. So what we heard in the phase 1 engagement revealed some consistent themes. Traffic congestion, of course, was the most commonly cited concern. Safety, particularly along Souk Road and Machosen Road, was a major concern. And residents wanted improved transit service and better cycling infrastructure. So importantly, there was tension between congestion relief and investment in sustainable modes. So this plan is working to balance those two priorities. Now, one of the foundational elements of the plan is the modal hierarchy established in the official community plan. So that this hierarchy prioritizes walking, transit, cycling, goods movement, and then private vehicles. So this does not eliminate vehicle investment, but ensures that when we design streets or prioritize capital projects, we first consider the most sustainable modes. And the TMP operationalizes this hierarchy through corridor design and land use integration, capital prioritization. So if this hierarchy no longer meets council's visions of the community, council can direct staff to amend this prioritization. And this is one of the engagement conversations that we can have to confirm if this is still a desired hierarchy within the community. But as point to this as an important piece of the TMP. So the vision is fairly simple through the TMP is moving around Colwood should be safe, efficient, connected, and sustainable. These 6 goals support that vision: accessibility, safety and security, connectivity, health, environmental efficiency. So these are the goals that guide every network recommendation and investment priority in the plan itself. Boat share, currently approximately 79% of trips are made by vehicle. Currently is 2022, as you can see. Council policy through the OCP states a 2038 target of reducing vehicle trips to 70%, with increases in walking, cycling, and transit. So these targets are important because they reflect the reality that we cannot build our way out of congestion through solely road widening. So the mode shift is necessary to maintain mobility as the city grows. Progress will be tracked as we get the C or D travel surveys over the years. So now we can get into some of the plan maps. This map illustrates the future of road corridor framework 25 plus years from now. The focus is not just capacity expansion, it's designing complete streets appropriate to their function. So it's hard to see on this, but it is within the plan itself if you have the PDF in front of you. The arterials, which are in purple, balance mobility and access. The collectors provide network connectivity, and the local streets prioritize livability and safety. So some of these that you'll see, we have identified new connections like the Allendale, through the Allendale lands. We're showing the collectors through there. Obviously, Machosen is prioritized as an arterial movement. And then we have other improvement projects through the project list later on, like the Machosen roadworks and intersection improvements. This map identifies the future priority pedestrian areas and sidewalk infill gaps. So this is prioritizing school connections, neighborhood hubs, transit growth areas like Souk, and then other intended growth areas. So given the aging population and higher proportion of youth, accessible infrastructure is increasingly important. So sidewalk completion is one of the most consistent themes in the engagement and safety analysis. So the cycling network builds out on the previous active transportation plan, but is now integrated through the TMP. So the emphasis is on creating a connected, comfortable network and not just in isolated segments. Key elements are sort of the north-south connections like Wishart and VMP and such. improved facilities along Souk and Machosen corridors, and then integration into the Galloping Goose Trail as well. So the protected infrastructure in higher volume corridors, like VMP in the future. The transit improvements are closely linked with the land use planning. And so while BC Transit is the one that dictates how the networks expand, having this included in our TMP allows Colwood to advocate for additional services to the community. So this plan includes, rapid bus continuation and potential expansion, improved service to Roll Bay and South Colwood, transit growth areas aligned within higher density. We're coordinating with our regional partners to ensure Colwood priorities are reflected in future regional transit planning. Some other communities might be advocating for a different rapid bus network, and we would like to see the line remain within Colwood. In section 5 of the TMP, it identifies the priority infrastructure projects and the supporting actions. So these include corridor upgrades, which is largely Machosen Road, intersection safety improvements, active transportation connections, and some further corridor studies. It's a 25-year plan with identified 10-year priority projects to guide capital planning. So all future projects remain subject to annual budget deliberations. So although we have a long list of projects, council will be able to review and approve the budgets as they're brought before council at the annual budget deliberations. In addition to the infrastructure, the TMP also identifies some priority actions, applying the modal hierarchy consistently, updating the development contribution tools, exploring the Vision Zero action plan, monitoring performance and reporting. The implementation will require partnership with the CRD, the province, and BC Transit. And so the TMP provides the direction. Implementation will be phased and included in the budget for approval. May I continue? I have a couple slides left. Was that a yes? Sorry, pardon. Great. So if council supports the recommendation tonight, phase 2 engagement will occur in March and April, with the final adoption in June, depending on changes in reporting. We'll present the draft plan to residents and stakeholders, gather feedback, and return to council with an engagement summary and any recommended refinements. This is tonight's staff recommend that council receive the draft TMP and authorize a phase 2 engagement. This allows the community to have opportunity to review and refine the draft before final adoption. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josh. I'm just going to start this off with just questions on your presentation, and then I'll go to council, but I have other questions about the TMP itself, the draft TMP. But one of the things that I did notice right away, which really bothered me, is that I can understand we're marrying up the old active transportation plan with the TMP. And it just looks like it's more active transportation plan for the first 80 pages of your report. But the question I specifically have right now is the first one is the transportation modal hierarchy. I will definitely disagree with that hierarchy you have right now, because I just go by your own data. Your own data says traffic congestion is the #1 priority. So I would have thought that whole modal hierarchy would have been upside down. But you know what I mean? Like it's inverted to me. So that's my first comment that I'm going to make, and we can debate that after. The second one that I want to make just on your presentation, Vision Zero. I have no idea what Vision Zero is. I read that Saanich is doing that, and I think Victoria has adopted it, but have we ever been briefed on that? Is this previous councils, and have we adopted Vision Zero? Because I don't think we have. That's a major impact on decisions that we make right now. So I have no idea what it is about. Okay, please, thank you, someone.
If I may, through the chair. Vision Zero certainly has not been endorsed or adopted by council. We, in 2025, had a small project which would have been sort of a soft phase one of Vision Zero, which was, I think, a $20,000. We ended up getting a grant through ICBC, so I don't think it actually cost Colwood anything. And basically it analyzes all intersections and road networks inside of Colwood. So if you remember, there would have been a report that came to council, talked about all our data collision when we're referencing that data. That is an output from the early stages of considering Vision Zero. So that's what we brought to council. No further steps have been taken. There are probably another 4 steps that could be taken. And inside of this TMP, this is sort of a supporting possible action that we could explore. So it's listed in the TMP as an option, something we could look at as a community, but certainly not anything we're committing to or suggesting that from a staff level needs to be done or anything like that. It's very much this is something we could look at in the future, and it's linked to incidents, and it's a goal-oriented sort of program that you buy into, which is trying to mitigate any deaths and reduce any accidents that result in those.
Okay, makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that going forward, before we use that in our documentation, that we get a presentation and we either adopt it or do something here, because it's confusing. I had to try to use AI to try to find out what it was, and you got the gist of it right now, but I thought, geez, we've never adopted this, so I'd feel more comfortable, using that in presentations to us and to the public, that we understand what this is all about. At this point in time, just on your presentation, I'm going to turn it over to council for questions. Councillor Ward, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, staff, for putting this together. I know a lot of work went into it. I think the general synopsis of it is that it is an updated version of what we saw in 2015. And I like some aspects where I think perhaps it's similar to council and our strategic goals, we narrowed it down to I think down from 8 to 6 goals in here. So there was some effort, I think, made to streamline it a little bit. From my perspective, definitely the mayor hit off on one of my first issues, which was around the sort of the hierarchical structure there. I'd noted in here that when we talked about what we heard specifically, under traffic and congestion, that driving/carpooling was identified as the aspect of the transportation system that should be considered highest priority. That was some of the feedback. Interestingly, road safety, people weren't overly interested in streetscape design enhancements, reduced speed limits on residential streets, which I found interesting. And then ultimately, when asked specifically what aspects of Colwood system should be considered the highest priority, the first 3 were all related to vehicles: driving, carpooling, transit, commercial transportation. You get into the bottom section before you start to see cycling and walking and things like that. So yeah, I had to ask the question, how relevant is that transportation modal hierarchy slide as well? And I wonder, if we might be better served by less of a hierarchical view as more of a hybrid or all-encompassing view when we look at specific projects. If we're talking about a road cross section, we obviously need to consider that currently drivers, vehicle traffic is the predominant means of getting around. And even when we talk about climate initiatives and things, we talk about EVs and the increase in electric vehicles. They're still vehicles and they still use the road system. So I think we need to take a realistic view on that. And at the same time, incorporate all of those other factors. And I've always been a proponent, I've said it here at the table before, is that it doesn't have to be an us or them approach with multimodal infrastructure and roadways. Like in Victoria, it's we will narrow the roadways, we will make driving difficult, we don't want trucks downtown. These are statements that have been made. Restrictions on delivery vehicles and things like that, at the expense of trying to push people into mode shift. And I'm not an advocate for government taking a position of pushing people in any particular direction. So I think that maybe we need to consider that we can have both, and some of the change will happen organically,
Now, for example, protected bike lanes to me still make sense. They protect children going to school. We see mentioned in the report here the advent of e-bikes, and e-bikes, if anyone's ever, I've got one myself. If you're riding on the Goose, you can hit some pretty high speeds. So I think having almost a dedicated lane for e-bikes is going to be something that we look at in the future. But so I just want to be clear that I'm not opposed to integrating the active transportation plan, but I think that the transportation master plan should very much drive the active plan and not the other way around. The other piece I wanted to ask staff is two things. One, we talk about data-driven decision-making and traffic modeling. The 2015 plan had some traffic modeling in that. We don't actually see it here. And I'm an advocate for transparency. And I think, is there a possibility to incorporate more public-facing information on how we arrive at some of this information? Traffic modeling, I feel even as council, we haven't had enough exposure. We've had a couple sessions on what traffic modeling looks like, but I think there's a real appetite for people to understand, or a need for people to understand the why. When I talk about certainly about the need to expand Machosen Road to 3 lanes, Latoria to 3 lanes, VMP to 4 lanes, why would I say that? And I think we need to demonstrate to the public the why behind decision making. It's not good enough to say, well, we're going to do this because it's the right thing. People are educated. There's some smarter people than I out there that really want more information, and I think we need to share that with them. And I wonder about our projects as well. We got a great listing of some of the projects that are in there, but I don't see any kind of scoring matrix or anything around that. Are we using, for example, something like RICE, like reach, impact, confidence, effort? Like, can we break down for the public, why we've prioritized some of the projects that we have? Like, we know we did that to some extent, and it precedes me on council, but sidewalks were selected, for example, because of proximity to schools. So I think having some sort of framework, though, that goes beyond just that one limited piece of infrastructure, but is the sort of all-encompassing framework or scoring system. And you may well have that. This isn't a criticism. I think in the engineering room, you've probably got some idea of, this is why we want to do this. It's more cost effective, and, the reach, hits more people. So I'm hoping we could see that. Because I think the more we can bring information to the public about the why we do it, the better. So not really a lot of questions, but other than, I wonder if we can do some of those things. I think to make this model a little bit more robust, make a few of the changes around prioritization, and then bring transparency to the public. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Council Ward. Council Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that there's going to be a common theme here with amending the prioritization of the mode shift. But my question is specific just to, for my own clarification on page 9, future road network and complete streets. I was just curious why it's not showing some of the light treatments, for example, the one on Carindale, the light at Carindale and VMP in the presentation, but yet it's listed as one of the 0 to 5 top priority projects. I was just curious why I'm not seeing it on that page.
Sorry, page 9 of the TMP?
No, just the presentation.
Oh, pardon me. The future node record. And then could you restate your question? You're not seeing something?
Yeah, just the light treatment on page 9, it shows where there's light treatments. And it's not showing the light at Carindale and VMP, but yet it is one of the top 5 projects under the 0 to 5 year priority projects listed in the TMP. So I was just wondering why it wasn't shown on this map. There was a reason for it.
Don't have a reason for that. That might be missing from the map.
Okay. It would just be nice to see on that particular page, maybe just listing where the future roundabouts are proposed as well in the TMP, because it isn't showing some of those priority projects.
Absolutely.
So not really a question, more of a statement. We could maybe fix that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Lots of good stuff here, and I do want to see this get out to the public. I find some congruity in some of my thinking with some of my counterparts. It does seem that a very small percentage of our community is actually cycling. Do we, I guess a particular question is, do we have data on those trips at all, Josh, as far as distance? Like, do we know if, you know, most of those people are cycling all the way into Victoria, or if they're short trips to school, or?
I would have to get back to you on the levels of specific detail, because we do have a lot of information on the daily trips and which are within and which of the community.
Yeah.
But
I think it's important in the sense that I differentiate greatly a child riding a bike to the local elementary school between a fully equipped cyclist doing 40 kilometers an hour down Souk Road to get into Victoria. I think there's, you know, there is a difference, and certainly I think planning wise there's a difference as well. I'm going to say a couple of things here, and that is, you know, once again I reiterate, and I've said it before, we're not Amsterdam. This has got, well, we got lots of hills, and this is a big country, and I see single digit cycling trips. So again, I question sort of whether a reorder of that focus might be necessary. And I'm going to go a little bit further and say I'm more and more convinced that you know, I think squeezing you know, a bike lane, sophisticated bike lane separated with all the accoutrement onto a major thoroughfare may not be appropriate in every circumstance. And I've seen the results of that. Again, even you could argue downtown Victoria is small, 5 or 7 square miles, and there's probably more destination trips as far as people heading to work. And it would make sense to have a little more sophisticated infrastructure and more of it. Yet from the burbs here, you know, we have to get people into town to work, and we are experiencing some, you know, some slowdowns, and you know, where I want to not get to in all of this is, you know, I feel sorry for View Royal every morning with all the trips going into D&D yard, and it's just turned into a bit of a parking lot. And I'd be remiss if I said that I thought that was appropriate for us in this community. So, you know, maybe we focus our cycling trips to certain thoroughfares. I don't think it's too much to ask. Again, I say it. We have the Goose Trail that parallels Souk Road, and maybe Souk Road is inappropriate for a bike lane. And we could ask our cycling community to help us out, because that's a compressed road cross section that is essentially a highway. Or beyond that, again, I've cycled in Paris, where on the major thoroughfares, bus lane is actually the bike lane, and so you share the buses and bikes share the same lane, and you know, it works. So those are some of my thoughts, and I find consistency with some of what's been said. There's a lot of meat on this in this report. And I think it's important that we do get it out to the community to get some more careful feedback, more intense scrutiny on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Grove.
Thank you, Mayor. I found the report really helpful and informative, and the action transportation aspect laid in there help put it all into perspective for me. I appreciate that. The hierarchy aspect, again, sort of is a basis, I suppose, in my comments. I'm not so offended by the hierarchy that's in there, because if the purpose is to lower emissions, and I'll remind the climate action plan speaks to the priority of trying to reduce emissions in Colwood, 45% or more is attributable to transportation. So if that makes a priority, not to mention that a bike lane can be built for a 10th, a 20th, a 50th of travel lane, then in terms of priority, how does that look? And are we going to add bike lanes when we're adding new drive lanes? Typically, yes. So the drive lane takes priority. We spend a lot of time discussing how wide that travel lane needs to be, how many there needs to be. So the bike lane comes along, and should it be there? Well, of course. So in a sense, the priority really is there because it's included. And so I don't have a problem with that priority. The other thing is that with it though, if it were to remain at a higher priority level, we could consider, I forget the name, I don't know if you guys could help me out with that, for a bike path that doesn't follow a typical roadway or a main roadway,
There's one suggested down Wishart, like a multi-use pathway, connecting hopefully maybe someday. I think a past councillor spoke to it quite a bit and would connect through to the Goose through the Royal Roads grounds, which is of course a challenge because of the territory. But the idea that the bikes don't necessarily have to follow all the main roads. So you could have dedicated pathways through. This is also some of the research I've done. You've seen it coming out more and more in other cities. One aspect that I think is important, again, with the priority is transit to be high, because right now, if we're congested, adding more lanes will, for the first 3 years, create more as the roads are torn up to make that enlargement. We will continue to build homes and continue to buy cars. So it's almost, I think that we need to consider other options. And for instance, one thing I'm growing on me is the idea of microtransit. And again, this is where you put transit in a higher priority. It's a way to hopefully cut the congestion problem now, right now, start. We have a problem with affordability because of the buses, the operation, the frequency isn't enough for people to use it, and there are options. There's now autonomous battery electric small vehicles that run about 40 kilometers an hour, but if you've ever been on a bus, they don't get going much faster than that typically anyway. And those can be dedicated pathways that are relatively cheap to build, about 1/10 the cost of LRT or some other transit. So looking forward 20, 25 years, that hierarchy to me is actually in the right place. We're going to build more lanes. Mick Chosen's going to go to 3. It's in there to put 4 lanes where we can. And in the end of all of this, I have a feeling we're going to find it difficult to improve our traffic situation as we continue to back up from the library, from West Shore Town Center, our shopping center there. We just back up as it is now. So I think we spent a lot of time in isolation there. We need to think about a West Shore microtransit thing. Anyway, on page 79, there's an EV page, and I'm supposedly the EV guy, so I know that EVs also take up room on the road. But aside from that, the notion about emissions, I get it back to the climate action plan, which states quite clearly that we are on a high priority reduction of carbon use in this country and in this city. The line, one thing I wanted to see, the use of hybrid. And I know that the provincial mandate states that hybrid and plug-in hybrid are low emissions vehicles. In the hybrid, typically 25% less. But the problem is that in hybrid vehicles, typically people don't bother plugging in, especially if they're in condos. So they end up just using a gas engine, so they're not really low emission. That I would like to have removed. And the there's a line there, the first paragraph, and it ends up reduce vehicle related emissions while retaining the flexibility and convenience afforded by private vehicle use. That sentence to me seems to be it's misdirected. It's electric cars have that quality of being flexible and convenient. And I don't know if it's just a descriptive sentence, but anyway, that caught my eye. Thank you. I don't have any more questions. I have more questions, but I'll just shut up for now. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Day.
Thank you. So I'm glad that we have a TMP to take out to our public. And I think that the input is likely to be pretty much from every direction. And we haven't seemed to have made much use of our traffic model, which cost quite a lot to get. And as far as I know, it does not automatically reflect our current and future trends. So does the plan that we are presented with is it based on the future growth areas from a data set that includes the areas that we have already approved? Are you anticipating where the congestion will be?
Thank you for the question through the chair. Yes, so the traffic model was used to establish these arterial and collector roads, and the future congestion and the road upgrades that we're suggesting are suggested based on the traffic model that we're currently running. That was presented to council. I can't remember when, but we've gone through the traffic model presentations with council before.
Okay. So on the, was trying to look for the page number. I guess it's page 73. It's the long-term street network, and it does not include a traffic light at Carindale and Wishart, which may be something that is required in the future. Simply because a large number, at least according to Google Maps, a large number of the population who's traversing from South Colwood towards Souk Road is using the Carindale Wishart route. According to Google Maps, the majority of destinations from within Colwood are choosing that route. So I'm just wondering also for the cycling side of things, Wishart Road on this map is not listed as a collector after the fire hall towards Souk Road. And that is definitely a preferred cycling route because it keeps you on the flat ground and takes you further along past a lot of safety areas where you could either join the Galloping Goose or choose a different route forward. So I think that should be considered in our traffic plan. And I'm wondering, is there a reason why it doesn't show on this map? Did it just get missed?
Thank you for the question. Yes, it's not, Wishart north of Machosen is not identified as a collector road. However, it is identified in the cycling network as a cycling priority and a future cycling pathway.
Okay, so it may be because so many speed bumps were put on that road, but it is still being used as a collector. I have family who lives in the area, and often from Souk Road, people are turning left onto Hatley and connecting through to Wishart or through to the neighborhoods that are in that area. So it's certainly collecting traffic. It isn't a fast route. It's not a shortcut anymore, which it was at one point in time. And I'm not looking to make it into a shortcut, but I'm looking to accurately reflect that it is a road that people use to connect through our community. When we go to public input, will people be able to significantly improve the plan, or are we only looking at small changes from the community?
Will we be collecting hopefully a large amount of feedback from the community? And yes, one person might not be able to shift the needle largely, but if we have a large community feedback asking for a large change in one way or the other, that of course would be presented to council to direct any changes to the draft. So we'd be very willing to make large changes based on community feedback.
Good. Also, when a lot of effort or a lot of emphasis is put on improvements to Veterans Memorial Parkway, which I'm not saying that VMP doesn't have value. It certainly does. I use it frequently. But it's not always the best route for some destinations, particularly if you're trying to get into the main part of Victoria. If you're going to the hospital, for example, and you need to get there on time, you're not going to want to continue through Langford because of this extreme congestion on that route and the fact that you're looking at greater numbers of vehicles already backlogged on a road that's farther to travel. So because our other corridors provide better routes for our internal community needs, somebody needing to go to the hospital for a test or go to the ER or go to the airport, for example, it's not our best route, and we know that. Is there a plan to prioritize our other routes first. So I recognize that VMP is adequate right now, but it's filling up. And I also recognize that a large percentage of the traffic that is flowing um, without much interruption at high speeds through Colwood is not originating in Colwood. So I would like to find a way to put the priority onto the other routes in Colwood and also give an opportunity for people who want to use VMP from residents of Colwood who need to get to a different part of Colwood, and that's the best route. I want them to be able to get onto and off of that road safely and without huge delays. Is there a predetermined priority plan, or what is the best way to address that in the TMP for residents who might want to?
Thank you for the question and through the chair. Yes, so VMP staff received direction early or later in 2025 to prioritize the chosen road above all other road corridors, and that's reflected in our priority plan within the TMP. VMP, I think, has only 2 projects identified. One, because it's currently underway, is the Carindale VMP intersection, and the other is a multi-use pathway to address that active transportation piece. I don't think in our priority, which is 0 to 10 years, we have any other VMP projects. And again, we are focusing almost solely on Machosen Road for Machosen Road upgrades. And to answer, I think the second part of your question is, I think it is through that priority projects piece of the TMP that we can address. And if council would like to see any changes to that priority list, we can of course incorporate those to address what you're speaking to.
Okay, so we also there's a road that is, in my opinion, not represented on the plan that I think is very important, that I've actually been advocating since 2015 when we brought in the original transportation master plan, and that is a connector between Allendale and Machosen Road. So we know from our traffic model that Souk Road between Machosen and VMP is the busiest single section of roadway in our community. That is hands down the most traffic on that road every day, both peak times. And I'm looking to establish an alternate route for traffic that wants to access Colwood from Colwood that doesn't involve having to get into the back of the queue on Souk Road, a road that's largely being used by traffic from other municipalities. So there needs to be a connector. Now, if that connector is Allendale to Wishart Road, we are creating 2 problems. We're going to have people who want to get to that direction, not able, you would have to turn left on Machosen or left on Wishart and turn right if you were coming from South Colwood area, and turn right to get onto that. And then if you're coming down Wishart Road, currently at like school let out times, it can be very backed up at the intersection. And one of the challenges that we have is the short distance between the Allendale Road connection and the Machosen Road connection. So there really isn't a lot of room for a left turn queuing lane there. There's not a lot of road width to be found to widen the road for a left turning lane there. But there is that opportunity potentially on Machosen Road to create a path that is parallel to Souk Road that moves traffic from the one main corridor to the next main corridor where there is a commercial node and a necessity for people to access those areas, whether it's for a vet or a car servicing or any other a restaurant that exists there. There's lots of reasons to go there. And currently we don't have any road connection from a chosen. And I think the one that's drawn from Wishart Road is going to both impact existing residents and provide some downsides in terms of access.
Sir, can I just interrupt you? Can I get you to get to the question? Because
Yes,
this is a
absolutely.
question period, and we'll save the comments for once the motion's on the floor.
Okay, no problem. So I'm just trying to advocate for, trying to understand why no road has been drawn on the plan from the chosen road to Allendale to connect.
Thank you for the question. That was a possibility that we considered. Now introducing another intersection at, just like you're right, Wishart as well, but introducing an intersection at the chosen road in that location causes the same significant backups at a much higher higher traffic count location than it does on Wishart. That's also a part of that decision was the fact that the city already has the roadway corridor it needs to extend that collector road from Allendale through to Wishart. So it's a very convenient, low-hanging fruit that provides that intermunicipal connectivity that we're all looking for. Now, if you notice on the plan, we do include a future, actually, multi-use path or neighborhood bikeway that Councillor Grove was referring to that does move north and connects to the Machosen Road, because that wouldn't have the same effect on the traffic that a full road connection would. Now that wouldn't ultimately need to be that right away. I mean, would need to be collected by the city through development, and we don't have any time frame from developers on when that could happen or how those negotiations would go. So we're showing a a collector coming through to Wishart, at least in the near to moderate term. And then in the future, we'd like to see at least a neighborhood bikeway. And if council would like to direct a higher traffic connection to Machosen, we can look into that. But as I said, the traffic model, I think, showed some severe traffic impacts along Machosen itself, if we did that.
So I just would like to point out that since it is going to be the subject of a rezoning, it currently has no houses on that area. We certainly could require that a road dedication be put in there, because I would imagine that whatever is eventually approved for development of that area will be of a significant enough size to warrant a roadway on its own, let alone that it is part of an area that could really benefit from an east-west connection. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council Ward, secondary.
Oops. I'll be brief. I missed a couple quick points. Through the chair, was there any consideration given to identifying LRT as a municipal priority? I note that Dean Murdoch, who's the chair of the CRD Transportation Committee, identified in February that there is, I mean, this is kind of common knowledge kicking around now that the feds have a bucket of money on infrastructure. We've got renewed studies. There's 3 studies ongoing right now on various rail corridors in the region. And that, his quote is that the first full year of the service, talking about the Regional Transportation Committee, is going to be dedicated to the plan for regional transportation priorities, which will mean identifying priorities of member municipalities. So I want to make sure we don't miss the boat and that we're advocating loudly and longly, and working with our other partners and through the mayor and his relationships at the CRD table, making sure that the West Shore in particular is putting this out, and yet we don't have reference in there. To me, that should be probably the capstone piece at the end, is that the panacea to what really is the issue. And sorry, I'm waxing poetic a little bit here, but when we talk about, Councillor Grove talked about some of the climate concerns and things like that. We talk about traffic concerns, and the number one issue for people really is that backlog. That is not people driving around within Colwood. That is the commute, essentially, right? And we don't have the ability to fix that at this table, but we can advocate for this. So I wonder if there's any consideration to that, Josh, and if we can add that in there. And then secondly, the other question was just, I should reiterate that when I talked about setting priorities, you do have in item 5.2, that priority table it's a 4-quadrant kind of piece that lists each project. The only thing I'm asking is it possible to add a third column that would identify, for example, when a single quadrant item is in the 0 to 5 year plan versus a 4-quadrant item in a 10 to 20-year plan, why it would appear that way. I understand it because there's budget priorities and things like that. But if you're looking at it from a weighted perspective, the public might look at that and go, well, shouldn't a 4-quadrant item, you know, take precedent over a single quadrant item? So just something to think about from a neophyte, you know, resident view anyway. And just on LRT, maybe you can answer whether or not there was consideration given, and if that has been part of the discussion in terms of the long-term transportation planning.
Sure. I think it's something we could certainly add to the TMP to signify council and Colwood's support for an LRT. I think it was left out because it's not necessarily within our community itself. But if that's something council would like to see added and to voice their support, like the rest of the transportation, the transit section, it's not something we necessarily control ourselves, but we do want to try to advocate for the best services for Colwoodians. Sure.
Now that the Atkins station is now Colwood Station. I made it so. That's a really good points everyone's brought up here. I just have some specific questions here just to wrap this up right now, and then we'll get a motion on the floor. My first question right now, you know, the meat of your TMP starts about page 62 or so. 81 is the implementation, which is really good. I encourage the public take a look at that. That's where the meat of it is. You kind of die the death of many, you know. It's a slow death when you first read those first 60 pages. That's for sure. You go, oh, nothing's changed, but in fact it has. You do address a lot of the issues. But my question specifically is as follows. It's a different question when you ask question to the public and say these are our priorities. But then when you put a dollar value to it, it certainly changes people's mind. So my question is, can we, with the priorities that you have there, can you just give a rough order magnitude of the cost of each of those? Because it's visionary. We can visionate all that stuff, but if we can't afford it, then why are we doing this? This is false hope for the public, and I don't want to do that. You know, let's under promise and overachieve sort of thing. That's my philosophy all the time. So I'm really worried about that because I kind of did some rough values and I went, well, I don't think this is affordable. And the other part of it, if you could, I'm asking staff to do this. Could you indicate how it's going to be paid for? Is it DCCs? Is it taxations? Whatever. That would be a beautiful column to have the rough order magnitude and how we're going to pay for it. And that just gives you a better understanding of the plan. And I think it makes it wholesome. My other comment is I just clearly from you, I want to understand what this phase 2 survey is. Are we going out asking for more opinions? Are we going to actually give them options out there? Like, you know, your projects right now are options, right? But are we giving them options? Or are we asking for more opinions? That's what I clearly want to understand at this point in time.
Thank you for the question. Yes, so the phase 2 would be a survey, a in-person event, and a survey in-person event, and a third thing. The survey hasn't been designed yet. However, we would be presenting the TMP, the draft TMP, as if our recommendation goes forward, we'd be presenting this draft TMP with questions to say, essentially, do you agree with this? Do you agree with this section? What would you see change with this section? To try to gather feedback in a way that would be actionable and usable. It's difficult through a survey, but we'd work with our communications department to draft something useful.
Okay, so we're going to be giving them choices then, right? Correct?
Yes, but again, we haven't drafted.
So, and I do agree with Councillor Ward, what he talked about before when he says we got to be transparent about this. How did we come up with these things? That's the justification that I don't, you know, it's not clear in the TMP. Maybe it's not the right document for it, but it'd be good to have that, I think anyways. Go ahead. Someone stuck up their hand. Please, John.
Thank you, Your Worship. Um, obviously, the conversation tonight is it's excellent because that's what this is about. This TMP is not staff's TMP. It's your TMP. Right? We need you to tell us what you want. What we've shown you is what we've had to work with. We have an OCP that's a founding document that was created by council. Now, this OCP wasn't created by this council, but it is a document. That's where that hierarchy comes from. So we don't make things up. We don't figure it out for ourselves. We use the documents that we're given unless we're told to do something different. And at this point, this document represents the previous transportation master plan and the tenants held within it. And then we took on top of it where are we at now. So we have changed some of it. So the reason we were able to put some meat to it on the implementation piece was because today's council has told us Machosen is important. So we put that into the document to represent that this is what this council wants. But we don't know what this council wants with the draft piece. It's a draft piece. You need to tell us what you want. If you want 30 of the 62 pages taken out, I would love that. I hate reading 60-page documents to review. I'd be happy to get down to 10. I mean, I would love a more succinct, if you want traffic to be number one or congestion results and what we can do to move a needle, we need to hear that. This survey, we should ask pointed questions. Would you support, to save dollars, narrower bike lanes, narrower sidewalks on only one side, extra lanes over active transportation? Those are the kinds of questions that will maybe give you some indication where we're at publicly. My concern with that is that generally speaking on the engagement process, to Royal Bay homeowners and the people that are tonight, they're the rare people that are coming out to talk about congestion. Most people have given up on congestion. It's a way of life. It can't change. When we do our engagements, it's the cyclists that are showing up. It's the people that want the active transportation showing up. So the survey results show that. So, if they don't show up tonight, it doesn't get represented, right? So I applaud them for being here for that reason, but it's your document. If you think they're speaking for the minority or the majority, that's your decision to make. Tell staff what you want, and that's what this document will look like. So we're happy to do that. And that can be done through that survey. So if there's certain questions in the engagement you want to find out and get answers to, we'll do that. I am, like I say, concerned that we'll get 150 people and 120 of them will be active transportation driven and you won't get a good lens of what you're trying to do. But you're out there talking to your community members. You know who's out there and what they think and what their concerns are. And your job is to tell us through this document what you'd like it to look like, and we'd be happy to present it to you. These other pieces about dollars, it's a little tough on the conceptual side, but we can give magnitude, right? We can kind of give I wouldn't put too much strength and emphasis on the dollar point of it because we'll get to that. And you talked about, is this the right document? This document gives us direction, but things like the 5-year financial plan and capital budgeting and those kinds of things, that's where we'll get into the meat of which projects should we do and which ones can we afford and which ones should wait. And more importantly, which ones can we get grants for? So there's different directions to get some of this done, but I would encourage you tonight to, if you've got some ideas on what you'd like to see staff find out for you to figure out what this document looks like, let us know and we'll make sure we go to the public and figure out a way to get those answers.
Okay, thank you very much. My last question. The other thing that I'd like to get a decision, give you direction somehow from council because, we talk about roundabouts a lot. And philosophically, it's not really addressed by the TMP. Like, should it be our number one choice, the way that we do it? So our mindset going into an intersection is, let's look at roundabouts so that you can clearly get past that right now. And then, or the second option that's available right now, and I'm starting to read a lot more documentation on this, and people are sending me all kinds of YouTube things that are actually being implemented in Canada right now, and that's smart devices at intersections right now. And the whole goal is to keep flow going to the best way. So those should be in our TMP. We should actually say, hey, we're gonna start be smarter, but we do need to give you direction on these roundabouts because I don't know of when you just look at your map here, right, the 14 intersections, you have one roundabout, the one that we already have. And I just think I think we should try to, in my eyes, just from a keep the traffic moving idea, is we should try to maximize roundabouts as much as we can. So but you need that direction, I think. I'm not sure.
I don't need the direction, like the TMP will look at those intersections. I mean, from a staff perspective, the reason why, like, we've listed Latoria as a future roundabout and listed Sukhumit as potentially a future roundabout is that we know that's a council direction, and we spent a lot of time trying to figure out if Carindale and VMP would be a roundabout. But I think what you've hit on is within the TMP, I think we should have a section on roundabouts, the philosophy behind them, and the reasoning behind them, because roundabouts are a great tool in some circumstances. Like a roundabout, if we would put it at Ryder Hedgedale and Latoria, would never work because there's so many kids going across that intersection. The cars would never get through because the pedestrians would always interrupt that traffic. The magnitude difference between the two would crush a roundabout there. But there are places where it works really well, and we'll do that. But I think from what you're saying, what we should put in there is a philosophical thought about roundabouts being prioritized and when appropriate, put them in. And that we can do so that says to developers or anybody else when we're doing this, that we know that, okay, roundabouts are first and foremost to be looked at and then a decision made. And that'll help direct staff moving forward as well.
We're seeing eye to eye then. Perfect, thank you. And some of these other questions came up. Councilor Ward.
Actually, no, I've exhausted my questions. Mr. Mayor, in the interest of expediency, I was going to propose a motion.
Sure. Oh, okay, I'll go one last question and I'll come around. Councilor Day.
Thank you. In looking at our plans, I was wondering what percentage of the roadways that are anticipated potentially in the next 10 to 15 years have accurate surveys in terms of identifying where we have adequate road width available to us and where we would need to acquire some additional road width so that we could prioritize those in our design.
I guess it depends on your definition of accuracy. We have our road right of way on our maps that I would suggest we could probably determine are within 300 to 500 millimeters, half a meter, 2 feet, 18 inches. We've got a pretty good idea in most places, and we do have random surveys that can put them close together. But certainly, again, if you want a section on available right of way for road cross section designation, we can put that in. It's going to cost us a few dollars to have somebody go through and look at it. And I would suggest that we wouldn't get into local roads, but we do, again, if we just did arterials, it wouldn't be a lot. But if we then start adding collectors, like conversation tonight about Wishart Road, that's not included in the model, right? Wishart Road, although it's a collector, Kelly Road, although it's a collector, they're not in the model. The model is basically Latoria, Suk, Machosen, and VMP. All these other smaller roads, it would get so overwhelming and so complicated. The thing about the model is what happens is when we make changes to the input, like when development changes, or we add a signal, or we add a roundabout, we can implement it into the model, and then it tells us what the consequences of that are. When we start adding, I mean, the great thing about traffic lights are they form things orderly and so on, or roundabouts, but it also has consequence. When we talk about adding an intersection and putting a signal there, it's going to throttle back traffic flow. So that's why we like these left turn ideas, to just get them out of the traffic and make the turn when they can, rather than putting an intersection in. So again, if council wants that as part of this TMP, we can have a section with regards to available rights of way. And Machosen, we're doing that with the corridor study. That's an actual program. You'll find that on a Machosen corridor study. We'll actually tell you, here's the right of way all along the corridor. It's not going to be accurate because we're not going to survey it, but it'll be more than reasonable for you to make informed decisions.
So the map that's on page 83 that shows the next 10 years worth of anticipated intersection upgrades and roadways are identified on it. you're saying that you don't actually necessarily have accurate data on the road right-of-way width that we currently have, even for what we're anticipating for the next 10 years.
Sorry, we have enough data. I wouldn't call it accurate, but we have enough data for concepts, right? Concepts are, this is what we'd like to see, this is what we can build, and then you get down to design, and that's when you start talking about consequence, right? Will we need more land because we can't do this? Are we going to run into infrastructure that's going to cause us to do something different? Are there some trees that we definitely want to save? Like, it'll be close enough that we can make a determination because we're only going to have to shift things by millimeters or feet or inches. We're not going to have to shift them by 5 meters. So we don't need the accuracy of a survey. We need again, it's close. It's just not like, I hesitate to say it's accurate because it will be out, but like, I wouldn't want to put a building on the lot based on what we have. But I'm okay with determining what a road cross section would look like with the available room that it looks like we have. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I would just say that I would hope that we would do better than that and have a plan that would include ways to achieve our cross section rather than compromising our cross sections as much as making the projects that we do work well.
Thank you very much. Councilor Grove, quick question.
Thank you, Mayor. Just about the timing. So we were talking March, April for public engagement, phase 2. Is that right? It was on there somewhere. Sorry, Josh. And then the presentation is, as it comes back to council, we'll have time to rehash and refine this as we're doing in this situation. We'll be in this situation again, correct, with the new information. I'm just trying to get it clear. So the timeline, and then there's a certain momentum building I sense about this process, and I really think that is going to work in our favor as the focus stays in place to get to a good result. So I'm just thinking about my ability to involve myself in this process. We're coming back, right? So whatever we decide here today, our council tonight, there'll be room for these improvements and these suggestions to work their way through. Kind of a
Just to confirm, yeah, I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
We'll be doing a survey. The results of that survey will then be presented to council, I think, along with an updated TMP based on the survey and council's own opinion.
Yeah.
So that council can debate again to make any
a
further.
bit of a redundant question, but I'm kind of asking it for my sake and anyone else who wants to know. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. And Council Wilson has a quick question.
I promise I'll be quick. Just a question for staff, and actually it's something that Councillor Ward brought up maybe a couple of years ago. But I'm just curious with the foot traffic at Ryder, Hedgedale and Latoria with the school. Has a scramble ever been considered at that crossing for students? Because I know that we're seeing year over year, like picking up a student and coming out of that school is virtually impossible. And now you've got a light there where you can't turn right. And I'm just wondering is that something that maybe we should be considering at that particular intersection? And does it meet the criteria for something like a scramble?
I happen to know that we're actively meeting with the school district and reviewing that specific intersection. I don't think it needs to be addressed at the TMP level right now, but we are, I think, investigating potential upgrades for that and timing changes.
Great news. Thank you.
Your worship, I'll just add that is a very complex intersection because of the high school. Scramble would be, but that's a dollar thing. So if that's something that's important when we get talking about budget later this week, you're probably going to throw a few dollars at it to actually dig into that intersection. But Mr. Bellis here has met with the school board and talked about that. And we have done a couple of small little tweaks, but it is a tough one. So it would take a little bit of an investigation to get in there to see if we've got some options.
Okay, thank you very much. Council Ward, finally.
Thank you. Yeah, I drafted an amendment. So what I'm looking at is the staff recommendation option A with an amendment to that. So it's for clarity, it's not an amendment. This would be a motion, a freestanding motion, but the piece that I've drafted would fit after the second sentence. So after the word, so that council received the draft transportation master plan for review, and then there would be an insertion of the paragraph that I've emailed over. So that's where it would fit in. And just while to comic relief, maybe. No, I'm kidding. But while corporate services is inserting that there, what I'm proposing is that we add in and that prior to public engagement, that we provide an executive summary. So first of all, we mentioned the length of this thing. I noted the 2015 plan has an executive summary at the outset, which distills it down. So we could create an executive summary. Mr. Mayor, to your point, we should itemize in there how projects are funded. I've included that bullet point. We should remove or amend the hierarchy, which we've all touched on. And then the reason for placement of projects on the prioritization timeline, so the public understands why they are where they are. And then lastly, include prioritization of advocacy to higher levels of government and regional governments. That singular is in the CRD, plural as in our municipal partners. On light rapid transit or light rail transit, depending on how you want to look at the acronym, which we should publicly identify as the logical solution to our highest priority issue. When I say our highest priority issue, that's the public's highest priority issue, what they've identified as the core issue. I know for many years in the previous council, that was included and spoken about a lot, not LRT, but the mythical ferry idea, which has been debunked numerous times. So I don't think, though, that we're proposing something here that is far-fetched. As I said, there's 3 studies going on right now. So this is something where the headline of the Times columnist from the CRD chair was that the time is now, right? And we're seeing that across the board. So I think this council should fully endorse probably the only thing that can truly change the traffic challenges that we have. That's my motivation. I'll leave it at that. I'm open to friendly amendments. If I don't like them, I'll say no, and you'll have to make your own amendment to my amendment or to my motion.
You did everything that we talked about, John, for this. Just the discussion on roundabouts. Do you want that in there too, or you're okay with all that stuff? Okay. Can I get a seconder, please? Okay, thank you very much. Councilor George seconds it. Discussion. Councilor Day.
Thank you. I'm very much looking forward to the discussions with the public. And I would like to suggest potentially a friendly amendment, just that we also ask for an updated survey information for any projects within the next 10 years. I would be much more comfortable. It was what was missing in 2015 when we brought in the transportation master plan. And it has been a real detriment because we have our preferred road configurations, but we have no idea whether or not they fit or fit well, or what the constraints are that we will run into. And I think that we could do better service to our transportation master plan by identifying those shortfalls early.
Councilor Ward. Councilor Ward.
I just asked staff prior to considering a friendly amendment to that, if you could advise on what that would entail, both in terms of cost and staff time and overall time to do that.
John, thank you for the question. If you're actually asking us to legally survey the road rights of way, millions of dollars, at least a year of time. If we could find a legal survey that we could engage for that sometime. We're talking about, well, I'm assuming we'd want to do Souk, BMP, Latoria, Machosen, whether you want to get into Wishart and Kelly or not, because they're both collectors. That's significant. If you're asking us to just figure out what we have now, which is the road right of way that gets us within, again, I don't want to overstate or understate, whatever you want to call it, the accuracy, but it's within a foot to 18 inches in the worst case, and in some cases maybe 6 inches. Sorry that I'm imperial. 150 mils, 600 mils. It'll be, I'm quite confident that the impacts to your cross sections would be a bike lane that went from 1.8 to 1.65, or a road width that went from 4 meters to 3.8, or a sidewalk that shrinks. It wouldn't be, we have to get rid of a lane of traffic, or we have to get rid of a bike lane. So we could do that work. It would take a long time. I think to have a consultant go through and just quantify all that work would probably end 10,000 in a couple of weeks worth of work to actually look at it all and figure it all out and see what those widths are. So if you're just looking at taking all the data we currently have available through our LiDAR that we do with CRD, it'd be a lot less work, and that we could do. And it wouldn't be much. We could just add it on to the project.
I'm still waiting. I'll hear Councillor Day has
Scott still has the floor.
Yeah, I'll concede to Councillor Day.
Okay, Councillor Day.
I'm just trying to clarify that I'm talking about only the gray roads that are identified on the map on page 83 with the intersection improvements in the next 5 to 10 years.
Respectfully, I think Councillor Day, I'm going to decline the friendly amendment on that, not because I necessarily oppose it, but I need a minute to review this. And I think I also don't want to be in position where a whole motion potentially fails on an amendment. So I think if it stands alone as an amendment to my motion, I'm happy to discuss, but I think I'd decline a friendly amendment at this point.
No problem.
Comments, John, any response to?
I actually have a hard time reading that. Maybe I'll try this one. It will take a little extra time, and our unfortunate is Josh is fortunate. He is leaving for a paternity leave for his newborn child. So this can happen, but this will delay the process. And if council's comfortable with that, we'll get back to you with regards to the consequences of that.
Okay. Do you want to make an amendment motion then, Councillor Day? Okay, thank you. Further and further, not further. Last. And we had the seconder right on this, right? Okay. Oh, yes, Councillor Ward, go ahead.
Just for further motivation, I understand there are time concerns there and staffing constraints, and it is unfortunate, but this is a significant update. I mean, this is 10 years in the making, and I think to rush it to public, to try to get public feedback on something that we know doesn't align with what we're looking for and doesn't explain what it is that we believe or we support seems fairly redundant. We might as well just stick with the current plan if that's the case. So I'm cognizant of the impact on staff. I want to be clear about that, and congratulations. I think that's a real issue, and we have to consider that. But I think we would also be remiss, and we would be, not doing our due diligence and our duty if we simply proceeded and said to the public, hey, take a look at this. What do you think? We may very well see some of those same concerns come up and go, why didn't you catch this? Or why didn't you comment on this? So I think we've got to do it. I think there's some things like the executive summary, for example, might not be as high priority and could happen concurrently, to some of the other work. But I think, some of the other pieces just have, in my opinion, have to be in there. So that's my view on it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Seeing no other discussion, any other questions, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Okay, well, it's unanimous then. Thanks so much. Motion carries unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. We're a bit of time crunch. The solid waste survey results and next steps. CEO Johnson. And I guess I'm gonna jump up and say something here right at the start here. I'm just gonna have everyone look at the recommendation on that. And it's no more than that committee of the whole consider recommending to council that council direct staff to collaborate with the city of Langford on a joint procurement process for solid waste collection to pursue a unified collection service for the West Shore municipalities. And that council direct staff to return with a contract award considerations. That's the motion on the floor. I haven't made it, but that's what I want everyone to focus on. Anyways, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Johnson, please.
Public participation, Mr. Mayor. There was somebody that wanted to speak with public participation on this matter.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was wondering why she was kicking at me here. Mr. Apperly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're always forgetting me. Huh? Anyway, I'll be quick. I just wanted to congratulate staff and congratulate council on moving this matter forward in such an expeditious way since January 23rd. I know we had 2 years of waiting before that, but it's amazing to me that you've been able to move it through as quickly as you have. And I appreciate that work, John. In practical terms, this initiative represents a rare opportunity for council to deliver and direct a measurable financial benefit to Colwood households. And I just want to say that we strongly support the work that staff have done, and we strongly support the recommendation they're making to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Mayor, Council, you have read out the recommendation. I have nothing further to add other than Mr. Russell is here to answer questions should council have any. Or there's a presentation if you wish to receive it.
How long's your presentation?
I can keep it brief, certainly.
Okay, let's do it then quickly.
Through the chair, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. So to follow up on the engagement that we did last fall through Let's Talk Colwood. So just moving on here, this survey was hosted on the website, and it was in support of Resolution 2024-104, 248 completed surveys. Now we did have 748 residents that looked at the project page, 521 that accessed the survey. So there was definitely some interest. Key findings, so 81% currently use a contracted service provider, with many of those remaining hauling it themselves to a facility. 55% have theirs picked up bi-weekly, 28.2 are weekly. And then just a few more kind of high level details here. So generally speaking, residents are satisfied with their current level of service delivery using a contracted service provider. That's 62.5%. Though when asked whether they would support the city managing a coordinated collection effort, over 66% indicated yes. Many of the priorities that council indicated in their motion in terms of reducing cost, environmental benefit, and less truck traffic resonated well with residents. Branch drop-off also was well praised at 79% satisfied, but there was interest at 57% residents interested in potential curbside yard waste collection. Now the opportunity has arisen with the city of Langford because they are also exploring consolidated waste collection. So Langford's current model is identical to that of Colwood. So each resident manages and pays for their own collection in single family dwellings. These similarities provide a unique opportunity for collaboration. So there's a potential to achieve a greater economy of scale and environmental benefit through a consolidated West Shore solid waste collection. And this aligns strategically when we're talking about priorities 1 and 4. So strengthening community and sustaining nature and providing excellence in governance and services. So what would a collaboration look like? So West Shore municipalities would band together to negotiate pricing through a negotiated request for proposal. And each municipality would have a separate contract and relationship with the contractor. So essentially we'd be going out and getting preferred pricing and then dealing with that contractor individually. So this would apply to households and strata corporations of less than 6 units. And participation would be mandatory at the minimum service level, which would be established and enforced through the creation of a bylaw. So along the way, there are a number of options. And I think at a high level, just to kind of talk about what we might see in terms of putting forward an RFP. In terms of administering it, now the initial conversation with Langford has been contractor, where residents interact with that contractor through preferred pricing negotiated by the city. There is also a different option if council would like us to go alone or gather more research before we move forward. We could look at a city funded either through taxation or a fee for service model. But right now, the one we're bringing forward in terms of the collaboration with Langford is that top one indicated there. The term length. Now, going to market, because there's a lot of cost involved in purchasing bins, upscaling fleets by these contractors to meet this need, there is definitely a point at which it makes more sense to secure a longer contract. So, for example, that sweet spot is generally in the 5 to 10 year mark. We see those costs, those initial capital costs borne by the contractor, averaged out so they can get price stability over those 10 years. And then the other options will be looking at frequency and bin size. So, for example, weekly service versus bi-weekly, and then within that, using bin size to tailor it to residents' needs. Included streams will be garbage and green waste primarily, but also the potential to have yard waste. That's very much a thing. And there are, as was indicated through the survey, a number of residents in the community that do utilize a contractor for their yard waste, even with branch drop-off. And then customer service. So, for example, in a city paid for model where the city is actively administering it, a lot of that customer service will be run through the front counter, run through Public Works. But in the model proposed with Langford, it would be through the contractor, and so it will be about stipulating that they provide a local phone number or a local office within the Colorado or the West Shore where residents could interact and receive customer service promptly. And I'm happy to go into more details about those. It's mostly a high level there. And then in terms of timeline, so this collaboration, if we get direction from committee and from council, we'll be able to post an RFP in June with Langford, and then conclude that RFP in August, and then potentially be able to start phasing this in. So we're talking with Langford, the intent is to phase it in over the next 2 years. So it could be as early as January that we could start phasing this work in. And I just wanted to close out by putting the motion up there, and happy to answer any further questions.
Thanks very much, JR. That's a good presentation. I'm going to open the floor to council. Councilor Day, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So I have two concerns with this going forward. The first is the collaboration with Langford and then being requiring all households to opt in to the service. So one of the concerns that we talked about as we brought this forward was that over time, with Langford being 3 times the size of Colwood and going into this process, that there will be a diminished number of contractors available in the marketplace should Colwood decide to go later. And while we're, in this rush to jump on board for something that does initially make sense, we may end up eliminating all the competition and finding ourselves in an undesirable situation 5 years down the road where we may not be happy with the services and there are no alternatives out there to be found. So I think that Colwood would be wise if they're going to do this, to do so by going out for their own RFP, seeking contract bids, so that perhaps Langford has a contract with a different waste provider than Colwood may have, and we thereby retain the businesses within our community. We foster more competition, and we allow options for future contracts to be with more than just the single provider available in the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. I was going to say the same thing, that I feel that it's everybody's own responsibility, every household, to look into the prices. I mean, I think we only have 4 waste providers. in the city, and it's each individual's responsibility to try and get or to find out what the best price is. I mean, that's, you do it with TELUS, you do it with Shaw, you do it with, you know, it's typical to try and get the best price. So for the people that haven't done that and are paying higher prices, like they have an opportunity to get lower prices. That's one thing I wanted to state, but I'm just worried about reducing the competition, exactly like what Councillor Day has mentioned, that the little guys are going to be out of business. We're going to have this big monopoly with the one provider that's across North America that I'm not sure provides the customer service that some of the other local companies would. And I don't know if we've done enough research into this to find out if the little guys could manage this call it alone on their own. I'm not saying it's not a doable thing, but I'm not supportive of joining Langford in their um, with this project, and I think it would be better to go alone. Yeah, I just have concerns about it in that regard. You know, it will get more expensive long term. That's my major concern. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Grove. Thank you. It's about a variety of service. So is the organic waste, that little green bucket out the street, does that include the CRD pay for that right now? Or does the homeowners, because I don't use it, so.
Right now, individual residents pay for their green, right now, individual residents pay for their green waste.
Oh,
Yeah.
for the green waste, oh, they do, okay, so then that'd be good, when you say yard waste, you're talking about the branch drop-off style waste?
Exactly.
So that would be part of the parcel that you're buying? And the minimum frequency of service, can that be like one bin a month? Could it be that low, or do you suspect? I don't know what is standard. I think maybe every 2 weeks is more normal, but
That would be the likely one. It doesn't, it's not impossible that it could go lower than that. So if we pursue the option with Langford, essentially what we're doing is we're negotiating preferred pricing rates. And so there may be, and within that, the flexibility to go lower, but right now it wouldn't look like it would be less than bi-weekly.
yeah. So the reason I ask is that I'm not alone where one bag every 5 to 6 weeks comes over to the transfer station in Dunford or Langford there. And that's about, works out to $6.50 a bag, which works out to $70 a year. The compost is done on site. Recycling is rigorous. The reason the garbage doesn't stink is there's nothing organic in it, as it's supposed to be. No dog poop, nothing. So that $71.50 a month is about as good a price as you can get. However, I and many of my neighbors who handle their garbage the way we do, the same way, do also use the branch drop off. Would this effectively replace branch drop off then?
It could. I mean, that would be up to council's discretion. For example, if residents could secure curbside collection through the contractor, they may prefer that. And as a result, council may not want to continue the program, but that would be something to consider as part of a future budget year.
Yeah, and it seems that it would look different, doesn't it? Big bundles of the stuff that shows up at branch drop off is massive. Okay, so I think, I like the idea of a collective single contractor. I like the idea of the bigger the better, but I also caution because I feel that in my experience in business for 40 years that long-term contracts are great, but by about year 2, you're already struggling with a premium and, they find ways to pad the price, and by year 4, 3 even, you're not saving anything anymore. So I just have that doubt. I would support the idea of going forward though and checking this out. And I think the larger the contract, probably the more beneficial it would be, which seems to be the prime motivation for this. Although the number of trucks on the road is important. The one bag every 6 weeks I take to the dump is an electric car anyway. So thank you.
Councilor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be pretty quick here. I live in a strata property of more than 6, so I am Switzerland on this. It doesn't affect me, so I truly can look at it from a neutral perspective and what's best for the greater community. I noted the survey that indicated people's satisfaction with their current method. You indicated the numbers there. It was 62.5%, either very satisfied or satisfied. If we add in neutral, which is kind of, in my view, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that number jumps up to 85.5. So is there really a drive to do this is my first question. And that's a rhetorical question. Sorry, JR, you don't have to answer that one. The second piece I thought was interesting is we said we've got 66.9 or 67% of people that would be interested in it. However, the survey question specifically stated that it would be a single contracted service provider billed to property owners through property taxes. And we might have maybe taken a step too far on that one. Because now I see that the recommendation coming forward, or the key option, is that individuals would be responsible to pay directly to the contractor or to the vendor. And I wonder, does that impact that survey in some way? And the reason I asked that question too is you mentioned that this is mandatory for individuals. So we are going to say you have to do this. If we're not billing it through property taxes, JR, how do we enforce it? Is this the contractor now? Like, I'm worried about the optics of this being a mandatory service from the city, but now you've got collection service after 15 days from Joe Garbage that's unhappy you're not paying your bill. So maybe you could provide clarity on, if you know at this point, how that would be managed.
And that's a great question. I think what we're looking at there in terms of how you highlighted close to 80% when you factor in the neutral, the fact that residents are genuinely satisfied with the contracted model. We're essentially bringing those two questions together. You know, a streamlined pricing through a city managed service. Yes, specifically that question did speak to city paid for as well. But in terms of the difference here, if we went to a city paid model, residents wouldn't pay individually anymore, but they would pay through taxation. So there would be a certain level of net benefit too. So we were more going off the 80% positive response in the previous one. That there is general satisfaction, but that could be improved to meet some of the strategic goals that were highlighted, like reducing cost and that sort of thing. So there's no necessarily perfect direction from the survey results in that regard. And then, sorry, the second part of your question, I missed that.
It was really around enforcement. If, for example, we make it mandatory and the billing is through the third party vendor, so we'll call it XYZ Garbage, and somebody's upset about it, or they're having financial issues or anything else, and they're not paying their bill, we as the city, I'm assuming, would not get involved. We wouldn't have bylaw getting involved. This becomes a contracted, or so to me, it's a bit messy, I guess, is the point. So how is that enforced then if an individual resident says, I know it's mandatory, but I can't afford it, or I just didn't pay my bill this week? What happens next?
So there'd be kind of two different enforcements. So essentially, if a resident was choosing not to use the contracted service provider and was going, you know, against the spirit of the service by choosing a different one or dumping that sort of thing, that would become a municipal bylaw enforcement issue. A lot of the billing aspect would become, say, an issue most likely between the resident and the contractor, as it would be now. But that is something, of course, that we'd have to iron out as part of the RFP, and that would speak to that. You know, what would be that hierarchy, and that's the detail that we would get into to make sure that we would have a conflict resolution structure in place to deal with those kind of situations.
Thank you, JR. And lastly, I just wonder if we can quantify, or maybe this would come up at budget time, quantify the cost savings if yard waste is rolled into this thing. What does that mean by scrapping the branch drop-off program, for example? Does that offset staff costs on, managing some of these other pieces?
It certainly does, and that can be something that we circle back to when we talk about budget later this week. But that is a significant service for us, and so we could speak to that in terms of the exact taxation benefit. Either way, I couldn't speak to that this evening, but there would be something that we could talk about.
Okay, thanks, JR. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Councilor Olson.
Thank you.
Start pushing you guys for time here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll be brief. I mean, I'm certainly open to exploring the option of the efficiencies of waste services. I think for me, with the residents that I've spoken to, I'm just really going to be watching branch drop off, because I think that's a coveted program that the residents love, and I just want to make sure that it's not being jeopardized. So thank you.
So my own comments before I'll go to you as Councilor Jordison next, just for your second round. I'm like Councilor Ward. I'm from Switzerland on this because I live on a strata. I pay my strata fees.
I know exactly how much I pay for that. It's a line item. I pay $300 a year for both food scraps and garbage weekly. And there's no one that's gonna beat that, right? I don't think anyways. And if someone dares come and dictate that, you know, you shall do this from the city and I'm paying more, it's not gonna happen. I'll be out there protesting in front of City Hall. So, but I do know what it is with single detached homes there. I do see the upside. I'll support looking at this. Why not? Let's look at it. If we can save some money for our residents, hey, I'm all for it, man. I love it. Just don't think you know, there's gonna have to be different rules for stratas, I'm sure, because it's a lot cheaper for stratas. Okay, Councillor Jordison, last.
Promise I'll be quick. Sorry, I forgot to ask. The reason that Langford started looking into this whole program was due to community garbage overflowing outside, that sort of thing. So is this limited to just residential garbage pickup, or will this take place instead of staff clearing garbage from the lagoon and different areas around the city?
No, thank you for that. The intent here is to not do any of that work. So it wouldn't be parks or that sort of thing that we'd be looking to collect garbage. I think the intent of what Langford was getting at was that because there was no centralized waste solution, they were seeing public dumping increase. And so, and honestly, that's something that we've seen as well, is that whether it's roadside dumping or overflowing cans, it does happen. Probably not to the extent that it was in the downtown core of Langford, based on some of the accounts there. But that was the intent there, is to provide a standardized service for residents so that it takes some of the pressure off public dumping and that sort of thing.
Okay, and sorry, my last question is about why can't this be through the tax service like they do, for example, on Esquimalt, that sort of thing? Because I think they have it straightened out that it's just goes on your taxes and you just pay it with your taxes, and you're not affected by it. It comes with your taxes when you move into the house. And I think they have something already set up for stratas and what be. So why would we not be able to do it that way?
It's not that we couldn't do it that way. It's just that this specific partnership with Langford, yeah, in our early conversation with Langford, their model is to pursue this contracted service, where the contractor works directly with the resident at preferred pricing. We could investigate our own way, but it may not be as part of Langford's way. So that would be the kind of the issue at stake here, is that we would potentially lose out on that regional pricing, but we could look at doing our own.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone want to make it? Oh, John, be really quick. I'll give you 1 minute.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't want to extend the discussion, but I started doing municipal garbage in '93. You have all kinds of options. If there's something that you don't like about what Mr. Russell has discussed tonight, we can eliminate it from the equation. We can put every single option in there. In my career, I've actually had the garbage trucks, had the employees, and we've done the work. So if we get to a situation where it's ridiculously expensive, we just do the work ourselves. And we're usually competitive. And in my experience, we've been competitive. So that might be a problem. And if it is, then we can solve it. With regards to how it's administered, my previous career, we would actually have the contractor bill us, and then we were actually working with the CRD. So in View Royal, we paid the tipping fees to the CRD, we paid the contractor, the deal was with us, and then we had the homeowners. The reason you want to bring everybody in is just economies of scale. The more that are in, the cheaper it is for everybody else. So it's everybody gets their streets plowed, everybody gets their garbage picked up. Your strata would not get built because you wouldn't be part of that. So even if we went taxation, your strata would not be built for that. So we can build those into the contract, but if you don't have anything that's really upsetting you with regards to the options, we'll just throw the whole smorgasbord buffet at the contractor, see what we get, bring it back to council, and you can say no to all, maybe say yes to some, but you'll get to make some decisions in the future. So it's just a little bit of work on our behalf, which we're happy to do, and we'll get some answers fairly soon, like this summer. So you'll be able to then pick a direction from there.
So can I get someone to make the motion? Councilor Grove? I'm gonna get it to discussion where we're running it. Oh. Councilor Day then. Councilor Day. Councilor Day.
Thank you. I wanted to move option 3, that we take no further action at this time. I really feel that What's been outlined here today has too many concerns attached to it. And we are close on the heels of election. And I don't think that this plan is well enough developed to move forward at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. A seconder on that? Okay, Councillor Jordison seconds. Any further discussion on it? I'm just, like I said, I don't think it hurts because it looks like the city of Langford, is done most of it. And it's not gonna be a bad thing just to do that quick check and go, yeah, this is reasonable or not. I'm not even affected by it, but, I feel comfortable with that. Like I said, if we can get a better deal for our citizens, I'm all for it. You know, it's tough times right now, and that's why I will not be supporting the motion. Councillor Grove.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that I'm looking forward to hearing a report back from John. Did you say that it would be a fulsome report explaining the options and we can reject it at that time? If so, I'm completely. I think that's how we're going to get the information and the answers that we need. So I can't support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Ward?
I'm not going to support this motion, but I will likely support any motion that sends it to council for discussion, but I reserve the right at that point to say no. Because I do not believe on the heels of what we went through at the RCMP station that we should be entering into any partnership with Langford. Thank you.
Councillor Jordison.
What was the second motion that was? I know there's a motion on the floor, but I say.
John, the option 3, take no further action. Just reject.
Okay, I was seconding the motion so that we could discuss it.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't think I'm in favor of it.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Day again? Remotivation?
Yeah, just wanted to let you know that not everybody will benefit from this. I certainly would not, and I don't live in a strata. I pay for my own garbage, and I have a good deal. I'm grandfathered in with a company that I have from 40 years of service, and I don't. I think that the way this report was written, if this went ahead with a contract from Langford, it would be a disservice to me and most people on my road. I actually get my garbage picked up once a month because we just don't make that much garbage. So it's a net negative, and it also eliminates competition.
Okay, thank you very much. I do have a quick question here before I call the question. How much time and effort is this going to take on your part? If we were to pass the original motion, because that is important to me.
Well, in terms of the original motion, because we will be working with Langford and Langford is bearing the brunt of this work so far, it would require time, but it would not be as significant as option 2 if we decided to go on our own and work with a consultant.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you very much. At this point, yeah, could you put them back up again? Okay, but the motion on the floor is to take no further action. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And Councillor Day and those opposed. I guess that's the rest of us. You know, you can just list them. I won't name them all off. Okay, that motion fails. So Councillor Jordison, you want to make another motion? I have to wrap this up, so.
I don't exactly know what the motion should be, but basically I want to get the information if we were to go it alone. Just look at our options and bring that back. So for the council direct staff to return with the various options.
Option 2 then.
Yeah, like option 2, staff engaging assault. Just to bring back in options to council to look at. So we're not just throwing this out, all the work that's been done.
Do you have a seconder for that then, please? Oh, Counselor Day. Counselor Day seconds it. Open it up for discussion. Counselor Grove.
Thank you, Mayor. I see we're discussing engaging a consultant. That's necessary. You're working with Langford. They're working with consultants. How? Okay. Fine, I support the, yes, right, yeah.
I can answer that. So yes, they're working with Langford. They would, they're already working with a consultant, and so they have borne some of the heavy lifting and likely will through the RFP process. If we do our own feasibility work, that will be all of our money.
Yeah, I gotcha. So your original answer about the cost is stands. Thank you. I support that.
What's the approximate cost, JR, to bring the consultant in?
We have existing budgets of $70,000 for branch drop-off feasibility work and solid waste feasibility work, which we are proposing to utilize for this. If we go with option 2, that would most likely be using a significant portion of that budget.
What do you mean by significant?
I would say close to 60, if not a full 70.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Any other questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor of option 2, which is the call we're doing it on its own. All those opposed? Oh, it's pretty easy. Okay. Any other recommendations out there then? Anyone want to go with option 1? Make the recommendation for option 1. Well, I think we're back to option 3. To tell you the truth.
I'll move option 3.
You can't go back. You can't, yeah, we can't go back to it. No. Yes, Councilor Olson. Go ahead, ask a question.
Can I'm just looking for some clarity on option 1. Collaborating with the city of Langford, what does that mean? Can you just be very clear for the residents that are here, people that are listening? They're just doing the heavy lifting to get the costs associated with essentially quoting the city of Colwood independently from the city of Langford, correct? So we're not partnering with them per se in the service itself, just the feasibility of. Can you just give me some more clarity, please?
No, thank you for the question. So essentially, instead of each of us hiring our own consultant, we could work with a consultant together, which would allow some of those costs to be borne jointly. We would engage in a negotiated request for proposal together, which Colwood would not necessarily be obligated to move forward with. Say, for example, in a standard RFP, you would have your core business, and in this case, it would be Langford. And then you have your optional extras. So Colwood's pricing could be an optional extra. And then there would be pricing if Langford and Colwood banded together, they could get preferred pricing. So basically at this point, Langford is moving forward. We have the opportunity to be that optional extra on the process, and we can achieve some efficiency and cost benefit by combining our resources to do so.
So we're essentially piggybacking on their consultant.
Exactly.
And so what is that costing us?
In terms of firm costing, we'll be working with them on a proposal to outline that. Right now, Langford, we're working with them, and so the initial scope is being borne by that. It would be within that 70K that I quoted earlier, but the exact nature of it, I can't say. Certainly, likely less than we would be if we were going it alone, though.
So it'll be about 40%. Okay, thank you. Councilor Ward?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, basically taking the wording from option 1, but inserting the words no obligation prior to joint procurement. So it would say with the city of Langford on a no obligation joint procurement. I just want that clarified.
Yeah.
Basically, my motivation on this very briefly is just it sends it forward to council for further discussion there, and then ultimately gather the information. As I said, I'm Switzerland, I'm sticking to that. I think there is no harm in getting the information if there's no obligation, but there is potentially harm in not getting it in terms of cost to single family homeowners and others. So we are simply exploring it, and we can make a decision at a later point whether or not we want to enter into it.
Councilor Olson just seconded it.
Discussion? Council Grove, you want to discuss?
Councillor Day, do you have a comment or?
Oh,
Oh, go ahead,
I lost something. Councilor Day, go ahead.
please.
I'm sorry, but in what I just heard, there's still a cost to Colwood because we are going to share in, and we don't know what that cost is. So I'm not supporting a motion that we don't have the cost clarity on. We don't know what it was going to cost us, and there's just too many we don't knows for me. Thank you.
I would just add.
I'm gonna take a wild ass guess on that one, to tell you the truth. Our population is about, between Colwood and Langford, it's about 80,000, so we're about 25% of that. So our cost would probably be about 1/4 of 80,000, so $20,000. That's what I would do it, because normally prorated. Yes, John, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. You're probably not wrong. Total contract for Langford, I believe, is in the $86,000 range. I've had discussions with their director. They don't anticipate too many extra costs with regards to us piggybacking on. It's just looking at more information. So we may see, I would say 24 is probably large. I think we're probably going to be less than 20, 15,000.
Yeah.
We may not have anything. But there's something in there and it's not a lot. I told Caitlin if it's going to be a big number, let me know. And she said, we don't anticipate it will be. And she knows my big numbers usually around 20 grand. So I can't give you a number, but I think where you're going is probably quite reasonable.
Thank you very much.
I'm
Councilor
still on
Holden,
here.
please.
I'm still on here, but
What the
I'm still
heck?
on here from when I
Oh,
passed
I'm
it.
sorry.
But that's okay. I'll just quick. I think that's a complete game changer for me. It's 20, it's not 70. So I'm fine at 20.
Yeah.
Sounds like an auction.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have one more question since my mic is on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where's the money coming from? Like just the funding for it? And it would be nice if we had a cap on like how much we were willing to spend with Langford, because it was a little vague what you just said with respect to like how much we were actually going to spend.
We already have the budget, as Mr. Russell said, we've got 70 grand, so it'll be taking out of that. So we won't have to spend the 70 that originally was put in place to maybe consider that option. What I've just heard is there is a concern about council. If you want to put an upside limited for no more than with regards to exploration, if it gets higher than that, then we'll stop before we start.
Sounds good.
I think a cost cap would be a cost, you know.
You just took the motion off.
Okay, can somebody still tell me where the money is? Just where it's coming from, like what where the funding is coming from?
It's budgeted already.
Oh, okay.
We have special initiative budget for that right now.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other discussion on this. I'm gonna call the question, please. All those in favor of the motion? Okay, any opposed? Councilor Day is opposed. Motion carries. On that note, there being no further business, I will